must admit one thing. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So I can just show you quickly one of our paper where we have given a clear-cut idea that how to identify that period doubling bifurcation, and also we have done something on period bubbling also.
Okay.
So there are so many different things, but
Okay,
as you have
paper.
yeah, this is a paper actually. Here we have explained the phenomena quite easily, such that each and everyone can understand how this happens. So first of all, you can see that here trajectory, this is converging to a stable equilibrium. So this is a called some sort of transient decaying oscillation is there, and ultimately it is converging to the stable equilibrium point. Then you have this periodic orbit.
This is the period.
Okay,
Yes.
this is periodic
Closed
orbit.
curve.
Yeah, and this is for, you can see, probably I don't know whether you can see this thing clearly. This is for t equal to 2. T is a parameter. T is not the any time, not any period. This is simply involved with this original model, and that is actually known as, for this kind of harvesting model, this is a taxation. So that means how much tax we are imposing for the harvesting. So that means people will harvest the fish and they will sell it into the market.
Yes,
so T is appearing here. T is appearing here. So P is the price minus the tax. So that is going to contribute towards the profit of the fisherman. So now you can see here, this is a stable limit cycle. And then if you change your T a little bit, so for T equal to 2.03, you can see here you have that simply your limit cycle is now getting doubled, just doubled. So what happens if you consider this is a point, so it starts moving like this. Probably you are able to see my cursor.
Yes, sir.
It is moving like this, and once it is traverse this path, come back to this point, but it does not follow the same here. We have one orbit with certain period. At the same time, we have another orbit with another period. So according to my understanding, this is period doubling. Now, how you can understand this from time series? You can see there is 2 sets of local maxima and 2 sets of local minima. So if you look at the time series very carefully with the variation of parameter, and you can see that time series changes to this, then you can ensure there is a some sort of that successive period doubling takes place that leads to the spatiotemporal chaos. So this is period 2. Then for 2.049, this is period 4. Then we have period 8, and so on. And ultimately you will arrive at a chaos. And then if you look at the bifurcation diagram, in this case we were able to manage it in a very nice manner, that if you look at the bifurcation diagram, then you can see that this is the final bifurcation diagram. But how it happens? Initially you have, this is one Hopf point, this is another Hopf point. Due to change in the bifurcation pattern, that means to this format. So now you can see this is stable equilibrium, this is period 1, and then this is the period doubling to keep on changing the parameter carefully. You can see this is the generation of period 6, this is the generation of period 8, and it goes on step by step. And that's why ultimately you will have this kind of structure, and finally you have chaos here. So this is my understanding. But the point is that in literature, if you look at the some of the papers from physics, astrophysics, those area, in that case, what people measure, people actually measures that if suppose your time period, that means the time it takes to return back to the original position. Suppose your t equal to 2, and then you can identify a parameter alpha, background parameter alpha, when this time period will change to 2 to 4. Sometimes people, that kind of period doubling never leads you to chaos. That is the main observation. So what we have done here, ultimately we have calculated the successive thresholds for this bifurcation. I don't know where it is, but somewhere we have shown that this is also satisfies the constant, this one, that is Feigenbaum constant. So we have calculated the thresholds are this one, then this one. So this is the successive step where period doubling occurs. And now if you calculate their ratio, so then in limiting sense, they will approach towards the Feigenbaum constant.
Yes, sir.
And actually,
nice observations.
Here what we have done, in this case, we have shown this is a chaos, and then there is a reverse direction dynamics. So there is some sort of little bit complicated structure here, and then again 8 periodic, 4 periodic, 2 periodic, it is coming down to again stability. So that's mean you can think about, if we consider this picture, on one side people are moving from this direction to this direction. So whatever scenario you can see, if you come from this direction to this direction, again you can see the reverse one. So that's one we have shown here. And quickly I can try to show you one more thing. Just a second. That was also another nice observation, because
it was very nice.
Participants might be get excited to see these kind of things, because here this is actually appendix of one paper where we have shown this kind of structure, that is period doubling is quite easily visible. Here you can see that this is the structure at some point. Here you can see that these curves are getting little bit thick. This is thick only for the reason, after that you can see period doubling, because same structure is replicated here. And if it keep on occurring, so then you will have this kind of complicated chaotic structure.
Yes, sir.
And actually our I little bit excited to show you this result only for the reason that we have published this paper in Journal of Theoretical Biology, but recently this paper is cited in Science.
Okay, because they also want to relate the things.
Yeah, because this was a some sort of idea where we have shown that after long transients, nobody know what is going to happen, and that is the some sort of real picture in case of COVID, that sometimes we are happy with one pattern, but we don't know what can happen. For example, here you can see a sustained oscillation for a longer time, but ultimately you can see it converges to some coexistence steady state. So that is non-zero steady state. So based upon this experience, if you stop somewhere here, and if you assure that, okay, system will settle down to another non-zero steady state, but instead it actually settled down to zero steady state. So after this transient dynamics, we can see this kind of extinction. And if the situation, that means inherent mechanics, is quite complicated, then you might have little bit complicated structure, like after this oscillation it will show this kind of oscillation in a completely different mode, or this kind of irregular and chaotic oscillation that can also result in. So this completely depends upon the how nonlinearity is involved with the model.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Sir, will you please share your talk here in the chat box, because
already done. Already done.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
In the later example, the model is pre-predator model.
Which one?
In the second example, you just shown it.
No,
that
that is a single species model.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So can I start?
Yes, sir, you can start.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so today I'm going to give you some idea about the simple mathematical model for ecology. And just now, one of the participants, I was unable to show her name, but see her name, but she asked the question, single species or two species or prey predator. So in today's talk, I'm just going to show you in case of ordinary differential equation model, how the models have been constructed. And most of the time we are working with different type of problem from one idea, one perspective, because it is widely applicable or widely uh, presented in the literature. But inherently there is something else which is not spelled out in most of the research paper as well as published books also. Can start thinking among going to work on a particular problem or interested to discuss something with your students or maybe your collaborators, you should be very much confident and very much clear what you are talking about. So for that purpose, first I'll talk about some single species population growth model. Then I'll discuss little bit about the two species population growth model. And some of you might be a little bit surprised that, okay, up to yesterday you was talking about something ordinary differential equation, then little bit about bifurcation theory. Before that, you have talked about stability. So all of a sudden, why you are suddenly jumping to this kind of ecological models? Simple answer is that whatever you have learned, that is theory, and now you can see the scope where you can apply those theory. So I will not be giving you completely biological description of the model. Rather, time to time, I'll give you a complete idea about the mathematical ingredients which are required to understand the dynamics of single species or multi-species interacting population. So although just now I have mentioned multi-species, so within this lecture series, I should restrict myself only up to two species model, because three species and higher, those are quite complicated. If required, you can, as I have said earlier, you can contact with me. You can look at my research papers, because all of my published papers are available in ResearchGate. So whatever paper you want to see, you can have a look. If you find any difficulty to download them, feel free to ask me to send you a soft copy. I'll be happy to do that. So for single species population growth, first of all, the simplest model is exponential growth model. Now, first I explain what was the assumption behind the construction of exponential growth model. So basic assumption was that population of single species, which is denoted by n, this is assumed to be a continuous function of t. So now, once we have made this statement, population is denoted by n, which is a continuous consider this kind of single species model? Answer is no. Why? Because in case of Sundarban, the number of Royal Bengal tigers, those can be counted in terms of integers, and they are finite, not infinitely large, and their value is at most 200. As per recent literature, if I recall correctly, last year's count was 137. So therefore, you cannot differentiate those numbers. So that's why single species population growth for only tiger population is impossible. But if anybody interested to understand, okay, how much phytoplankton or how much mangrove biomass is available in Sundarban area, yes, the number of count of cell of phytoplankton cannot be counted individually as 1, 2, 3. So you need to take care of the equivalent dry weight of the nitrogen content within the phytoplankton cells. So therefore, that will become a continuous function of T. And even for mangrove vegetation, someone can think about, okay, I'm going to just pull up each and every mangrove tree and putting it on a weighing machine, taking their weights, taking note, and then finally making a sum, the sum is going to be a very huge number. And if I rescale it by some large quantity, say 1 lakh or 10,000 or something like that, so then in that case, you can see that destruction or new generation of the mangrove vegetation, that can be somehow admissible as a continuous function of t. So the point is that this kind of single species ordinary differential equation model is valid for a population whose individual count, that means getting individual count of such population, is more or less impossible. In that case, you can consider this kind of model. Then what is the basic assumption? Basic assumption is that change in population density within the time interval t to t plus delta t should be at the same order delta n, such that this delta n by delta t, as delta t approaches to 0, that should approach towards the finite limit. And if you combine these two statements, that means continuity of n with respect to t and increment of n with respect to increment in t, you can clearly understand within a small time interval, there is no change in the total tiger biomass in the case of Sundarban itself. So therefore, that is not possible to model such species with ordinary differential equation. Then what mechanism we are going to consider? The idea is that this change in population density based upon only two factors, that is growth and death. If this happens, then this exponential growth model is applicable. So that's why B is the per capita growth rate, D is the per capita death rate, and therefore change in population density delta n within the time interval delta t is nothing but B n delta t minus D n delta t. This is increase in biomass, this is decline in biomass. And now if you consider B minus D equal to R and divide both sides by delta t and then take the limit as delta t tends to 0, so then you will find dn dt equal to Rn. This is called exponential growth model. Why exponential growth? Because if you find out a solution of this equation, it will give you nt equal to n0 e to the power rt. And once your solution contains the term e to the power rt, then you can clearly understand that n will approaches towards infinity if b greater than d, and n approaches towards 0 if b less than d. So this is a straightforward verification of the assumption that if the birth rate is greater than death rate, then it will approach towards infinity. If birth rate is less than death rate, then it will approach towards the extinction. Now the point is that in case of mathematical modeling, one simple principle you need to understand, that mathematical modeling is an evolving process. Evolving process means, suppose based upon this much of assumption you have constructed a model, and then once you construct a model, solve it, analyze your solution and try to interpret the obtained result in terms of biology. Once you explain, then you can understand there is some sort of discrepancy. So you have constructed the model based upon some assumptions, and then what happened that once you are going to match the outcome with the realistic scenario, so there are some sort of discrepancy, because you can see in most of the cases, if you consider such kind of single species population growth, you have never seen explosion of the population, and at the same time extinction that takes place over a slow time scale. And most of the time what happens that within our lifespan we cannot see any such kind of extinction behavior. Now if you start thinking about the fact that what is missing here, the missing components are, here we have assumed B and D are constant. With the advancement of time, there is no change in B, no change in D. So this kind of situation is only possible within the laboratory environment. So this was, I can say, based upon today's research development in this area, this is an ancient model. So initially this model was constructed in order to fit with the population growth in US. So initially for 30 to 40 years, they have observed that there is a continuous increase in the population density. Then they have speculated that at some time point there will be explosion of a population, but ultimately they have seen some kind of saturation in the population growth due to some sort of economic and other different change into the system. So that leads them to think about twice about the modeling setup, and then they have changed the model a little bit.
Please, participants, shall I check whose mic is on?
So in order to modify this equation, then logistic growth model was introduced. So in case of logistic model, what was done at that time, they have multiplied this exponential growth term by a dimensionless term 1 minus n by k. So mathematically it means if n greater than k, then growth rate, per capita growth rate is negative. If n less than k, then per capita growth rate is positive. So that means environment can give a support up to an amount k towards the positive growth of the population due to availability of the resources. Now, as I have mentioned, R is the intrinsic growth rate, K is the carrying capacity, and this is the positive and negative growth rate. And the point is that if you non-dimensionalize this system, that means by rescaling N and T, you can remove these two parameters from the system, and then you will have this simple dimensionless form. So although here both T are written here in both the equations, but actually this is time with dimension, this is time without dimension. And now you have this simple nonlinear equation. You can find out its equilibrium points. One equilibrium point is x equal to 0, another equilibrium point is x equal to 1, and then if you do the linear stability analysis, then you can find x equal to 0 is unstable and x equal to 1 is stable. And rather, in case of population dynamics, we are always bound to consider x greater than equal to 0. So for this model, what will happen? If you start from any initial condition, analytically, you can prove all the time solution trajectory will approach towards the point x equal to 1. So that's why it is called globally asymptotically stable. Now, the point is that once we are considering logistic growth model, if you give a second thought on the model, then you can find out there are some discrepancy. So this exposed discrepancy somehow guide us that, okay, you can rethink about your model formulation and try to come up with a alternative model or some sort of modified version of this one. Now, before going to talk about modification of this model, I must say something about this parameterization. If you look at any standard book on mathematical biology, you can see this kind of parameterization. But believe me, currently, mainly from last 3-4 years, some poor people like us, we are trying to convince the people in a way that this kind of parameterization is not valid. Why? Because this is growth rate that depends upon only population density, and this is the growth or decay rate that depends upon interaction between two individuals of the same species. So that's why sometimes it is called intraspecific competition term. So that means suppose this event is occurring some sort of offline mode, and ma'am, please don't take it otherwise. In a joking mode, I am making this comment. And suppose for 60 participants, there is availability of 40 lunch packet. So there will be some sort of interaction or competition among ourselves, who will reach there and will be able to take our food packet. So that means that is some sort of competition for limited resources. So the point is that growth rate, once it is multiplied by R, so intraspecific competition, which takes place for a different reason, they should not be multiplied with the same parameter. So this is some sort of intrinsic growth or decay rate. This is intraspecific competition term. So therefore, this one, the parameter R should not be present in both the terms. And as a result, alternative formulation would be, according to my idea, this is dn dt equal to Rn minus Pn square. If anyone is interested to know more about this parameterization, I can suggest them to look at some recent paper by Yuri Tutunov, who have talked about this thing more in more detail. So I can type the name here, that is Yuri Tutunov. You can look at some of his recent paper where he explained that why this parameterization is not valid. Okay, so he actually proposed this one. And once you have this kind of parameterization, then you can divide this equation into this form. So n into bn minus dn. And what will happen, that bn is a linear function of n, dn is a linear function of n, and then R1 minus R2 is positive, and P2 minus P1 is supposed to be positive. So there are different mechanisms involved within the system which determines what are the values, magnitude, and sign of the parameters R1, P1, R2, P2. These are involved. But you know, this logistic model, in one sense, this is acceptable compared to exponential growth model. Why? Because it prevents the system from explosion. So it prevents the system for population explosion. So that means if on this axis, if you plot population density, on the horizontal axis is time. So this is the value n equal to k. From wherever you start, all the time solution trajectory will approach towards the value k. But if you look at their profile quite carefully, so then you can see there is a little bit difference in rate of convergence. Rate of convergence means the point at which they are more or less coincide with this value k, that is different for these three different colored curves. So deep blue curve, red curve, and this deep orange color curve, or you can say some sort of chrome yellow. Dilip Kumar raised his hand. Yes.
Participant is.
Any question? No. Okay. So probably
So maybe by mistake.
By mistake. Actually, some of them actually uses mobile phone, and I know in mobile phone attending any meeting is quite disturbing. If you just do not hold the mobile properly, several switches are get activated. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so this is the convergence, and ultimately they'll converge to the carrying capacity. But what is the main drawback of this model? Main drawback of this model is that whenever n is approaching to 0, then growth rate is maximum. This is more or less impossible, because if we think about some sort of 2-sex population model, so if you have very narrow amount of population, so there might not be enough number of capable male and female individuals who can produce some offspring after successful mating. And that's why in most of the species, or in case of several species, it has been observed that for positive growth, they need some minimum amount of individuals are required to be present in a particular location such that they will ensure their growth, and that is called allele effect. So these are some examples of different species which are now at different part of the world under extinction threat, only for the reason that different types of mechanism, environmental as well as physiological mechanism, giving them some sort of threat such that they are very prone to extinction in near future. So how to model in such cases? In order to set up such model, what we can do, we can change the per capita growth rate. These things I have already mentioned earlier, can be modified into this particular format. And this n square, this term comes here in order to take care of the fact that what is the probability that one capable male individual of this species mating with one capable individual female of the same species, which will produce new offspring. And if you want to have more description about this formulation, you can have a look at these papers. One of them is actually our papers, but we have taken this idea from Sergei Petrovsky's these two work in order to have complete description of the model. So if you are interested, you can have a look at it for more explanation. So then how to alter the model? In order to alter the model, we can multiply this one by another factor n by L minus 1, where the modulus of L is less than R by P. And if this L is positive, then it is called multiplicative Allais effect, which is strong. If L is negative, then it is multiplicative Allais effect, which is weak. And for L equal to 0, it is undefined. And again, there is a controversy among the group of researchers. Sometimes people consider this kind of formulation, but I prefer a different kind of parameterization that is given in this particular format. This was actually initially introduced by Eduardo Gonzalez Oliver in 1997, if I recall correctly. So what does it mean? That it means if you look at the graph of this particular function, in case L is positive and satisfies this restriction, so this per capita growth rate is negative whenever n is very close to 0. So that means in order to have a positive growth, there should be minimum number of population density or minimum number of individuals is required to be present there in order to have a positive growth rate. Otherwise, they will go to extinction. Keep in mind, these are the not only possible form of Allais effect. There are several plenty of examples depending upon other mechanisms which are responsible for constructing appropriate mathematical form which can describe or capture this Allais effect. So what will happen if you look at their graphs? So this is the blue curve for logistic growth, this green curve for strong Allais effect, and this red curve is weak Allais effect. So in case of weak Allais effect, what you can see that at low population density, this is always increasing. At an intermediate stage, they achieve the maximum growth rate, and again then they decline. So this actually make some sort of ecological realistic scenario that before this threshold and before this threshold for these two mechanisms, they behave like a cooperative species. After that, they behave like a competitive species. Once they are cooperative in nature, there is a growth or increase in the population. If they are competing, then there is a decline in the population density. And depending upon that, what happens that if you are below Allais threshold, then population will go to extinction. If you above this threshold, then population will survive. So this is all about single species population growth. Now we come to the two species population growth. In case of two species population growth, there are three different types of model, starting from the history of mathematical biology. Nowadays, this list is now extended to, as per my understanding goes, it stands around 12 or 13. Again, I'm sorry, it is not possible for me to give you all the description for such kind of model. So these are three standard model, and I'll just pick up some of them to give you more insight. So these are competition model, cooperation model, and prey-predator model. In case of competition model, these are all Lotka-Volterra models which are written here. These are the simplest mathematical model which was introduced by Lotka and Volterra. This is the competition model, this is the cooperative model, and this is the prey-predator model. So what is the idea? Here all the parameters are positive. R1, R2, A, Ij, they are all positive. So what you can see that interaction between N1, N2 has a negative effect into the growth of first species, as well as interaction among N1, N2 have a negative effect onto the growth rate of the second species. So that's why this is called competition. In case of cooperation, their interaction actually enhance their growth. So N1, N2 multiplied by a positive constant. Here also N1, N2, that is multiplied by a positive constant. So therefore, this is a cooperation model. And in this case, prey-predator, once N1 interacts with N2, so there is a decline in N1 and there is a increase in N2 when this interaction N1, N2 comes into the picture. So this is the concept that N2 is predator and N1 is prey. So that means N2 gives a negative feedback to the prey and N1 provides a positive feedback to the predator population. Of course, these are not well acceptable or well justified mathematical model for such kind of interaction. Rather, some new model comes into the picture afterwards. But if we look at the Lotka-Volterra competition model, there are three different outcomes. Three different outcomes are either we can see coexistence of both the species, or we can see survival of N1 and extinction of N2. Alternatively, we can have extinction of N1 and survival of N2, or we can see bistability. So that means both the species N1, N2 survives, but that depends upon the initial population density. If you look at these kind of equations, so that means if you find out the equilibrium points, then you find these are 4 possible equilibrium points. Then using the linear stability analysis, you can determine what are the stability conditions. So these are the functions, these are the Jacobian matrix, and once this Jacobian matrix is obtained, then if you calculate Jacobian matrix at 0, 0, in this case both the eigenvalues are positive, so this is always unstable. Secondly, if you calculate the Jacobian matrix at E1, then you can find these are the entries of the Jacobian matrix. Clearly, this one is negative, this one might be negative, maybe positive, depending upon the parametric restriction. So depending upon this parametric restriction, it can be derived that whether this equilibrium point is stable or is an unstable saddle point. Similarly, you can judge the stability of E2 depending upon the sign of this particular quantity. Now for N1 star, N2 star, you have this expression. Of course, you need certain conditions is required to be satisfied by the parameter values in order to ensure that both of them are feasible quantities. And then if you calculate the Jacobian matrix, it is little bit lengthy expression, but you can actually reduce the number of terms into the expression by using this equilibrium condition, because this N1 star and N2 star, these are obtained from these two equations. That means by solving these two equations. So what does it mean? If you introduce this equation or take help of this equation in order to reduce this expression, then you can see this term will only leaves the term minus A11 N1 star and will comes out to be this simplest expression, and from where you can calculate trace, which is always negative. Determinant is this one, N1 star, N2 star is assumed to be positive. So if this is positive, then your coexistence equilibrium point is stable, and if this is negative, then it is a saddle point. So therefore coexistence steady state is unstable, and depending upon this fact, you can have this type of phase portrait. Here you can see coexistence equilibrium point is globally asymptotically stable, because you can see all other 3 equilibrium points are unstable, and from wherever you start from an initial point within the first quadrant, within the interior of first quadrant, all the trajectory will converge towards this equilibrium point, and that's why it is called not only locally asymptotically stable. In this case, you can see only N1 survive, N2 goes to extinction for certain parameter value. For another parameter value, you can see N1 goes to extinction, but N2 survives at this particular threshold. And there is another scenario where you can find this is your unstable equilibrium, but both the axial equilibrium points are stable, and this is called bistability. So depending upon this kind of choice of initial condition, either trajectory will converge to this point or it will converge to this point. So you have bistability. Now the question is that where we can have this competition model, or why it is required to introduce the competition model. Suppose you can think about a hypothetical situation. You have a grassland and there is 2 groups of animals. One say wild ox, and another group is say deer. So both of them, they survive on the same nutrient. If you think about the trophic level, then this ox and this deer, both of them are actually herbivorous, and without any loss of generality, if we can assume that it is a large vegetation land, so there is huge numbers of both the species, so therefore their population can be considered as a continuous population density of both the species, and therefore you can think about, this is completely your choice whether you are interested to consider their population as two different variables or a single variable. So what will happen, you can write down the competition equation in this particular format, and then if you make this assumption, that is R1 equal to R2 equal to R and all Aij equal to A, then what will happen, your these two equation comes into this format, and now if you add them, then from here you can derive this single species growth equation. So now if you replace this n1 plus n2 by n, then you can see this is nothing but your single species logistic growth model. Now the point is that once we are talking about prey predator model, so here you can see this, all the pictures in the 4 different panels, they explain some species which are showing some sort of prey predator type interaction. But the point is that most of the time reviewers sometimes ask the question, which population you have in your mind for prey predator model. But believe me, most of the time people replies that, okay, I'm thinking about zebra and lion or something like that. But that is not true explanation for this kind of model. Why? Because can you ensure that there exists a forest where lion survives only on zebra? They are not that much selective for their food source. Rather, what will happen, that there exists a wide range of herbivores which are the main food source for the lions, similarly for the tiger. But this picture is little bit interesting because this is a polar bear. For polar bear, another interesting mechanism we can see, that their diet, so that means choice of their food, changes from one season to other season. In summer, when the ices are melt over the aquatic region, then they can survive on some fish population or some other zooplankton kind of thing. But during winter, when the ocean and other water bodies are completely frozen, then this food source is not absent. This food source is not present, rather completely absent, and they need to survive on some other food source. So these are called prey predator type interaction, but with the switching of the choice for the food. So this kind of constructing model is little bit difficult and cannot be done with the setup of ordinary differential equation easily. Now, one such kind of interaction that is observed for hare and lynx, and this data was collected for 100 years, and it shows some sort of irregular oscillation. Now, depending upon this irregular oscillation, it is completely your choice which kind of model you are going to construct, such that for appropriate choice of the parameter value, outcome of the system dynamics will matches this trend. And this data set was actually initially introduced to understand the dynamics between prey and predator, such that it can explain a oscillatory behavior of both the species. That is the most important part. And based upon this data, this Rosenow-McArthur model was constructed, where N is the prey, P is the predator, and these parameters are have this kind of interpretation. As all of you will be having the slide, they can go through it. If you have any question, please ask me maybe tomorrow, because today you need some time to go through them. Now, quickly, I can give you an idea that how this kind of functional form can be derived, because most of the time you can see in different books they have mentioned that, okay, Rosenow-McArthur model consider this type of functional response. But question is that from where this kind of functional form has been derived. That is the most important point. The idea is that you can think about N is the number of potential prey, V is the number of victims. So that means how many prey are killed or catched by the predator within a total time period T. And what is TH? T is the handling time for each prey. So that means once they catch a prey, they need to kill them and they need to some time to eat them. So that is called the handling time. So for formulation of this functional response, what are the basic assumption? Assumption is that number of victims is proportional to the number of potential prey. And second assumption is that number of victims is proportional to the searching time. So that means how many times they search, if that is increased, accordingly, the number of victims will increase. And therefore, from this definition, you can write down a mathematical formulation of this idea. If you write down the mathematical formulation, then you can see V is proportional to N, V is proportional to searching time because T is the total time, TH is the handling time for each prey, total V number of prey are killed. So therefore, total time they spend is TH into V. So the remaining time is the searching time. That means T minus THV is the searching time. And alpha is the proportionality constant. And from here, if you solve for V, then you can find V equal to this one. And therefore, amount of prey killed per unit time, you can find by dividing both sides by the time T. And that gives you the Holding type 2 functional response, that is AN by 1 plus AHN with little bit different parameterization after dividing this numerator by the time T. So with this one, you can non-dimensionalize the model in this particular format. Then you can find out their equilibrium points. You can linearize the system around the equilibrium point. These are the expressions, and around which point you are considering the stability analysis. Depending upon that, you need to evaluate this expression around that equilibrium. And finally, for E2, you can calculate your J2 comes to be this one. And then you can understand that one of the eigenvalue of this system is 0 whenever this expression holds, and that is actually your transcritical bifurcation threshold. For linear stability of the coexistence equilibrium point, if you calculate the Jacobian, then you can derive that E3 is stable for alpha less than 3, alpha less than this quantity, and E3 is unstable if alpha greater than this particular threshold. And with appropriate theory, you can prove that this system undergoes a Hopf bifurcation at alpha equal to this particular threshold. But keep in mind, sometimes it happens when I attended several workshop or seminar, sometimes people have asked that I was able to derive the Hopf bifurcation condition, but for numerical simulation, I am unable to find any limit cycle. Or sometimes people ask me that how to choose the parameter values. So these kind of results give you some kind of idea that how to choose the parameter values, because all the parameters are positive. So from this expression, you can clearly visualize that this quantity is required to be positive. So therefore, choice of beta should be greater than 1. So for this non-dimensionalization scheme, if you try to find out a limit cycle for a value of beta less than 1, never you will be able to find out any limit cycle, because alpha greater than this, that means a positive parameter greater than a negative quantity, that is impossible. And therefore, although you have derived this is the required condition, but due to wrong choice of the parameter value, you will never find a Hopf bifurcation threshold. And just for your reference, I have given here the analytical conditions which ensures the existence of Hopf bifurcation. These two are called required condition, and this is called the transversality condition. Now, the most important question is that from where I can find out this Hopf bifurcation threshold? Just by solving this equation, trace J3 equal to 0 for alpha. that will give you the solution. Now, if you look at the numerical simulation, what you can find for certain parameter value when non-trivial pre-nullline intersects the non-trivial predator nullline at this point, it shows this kind of monotone convergence to the equilibrium point and it is stable. After certain threshold, once your nullline moves to this position, you can see trajectory comes in this way, then start decaying, again x is increasing, then again x is decreasing, but y keep on increasing, and after some small rotation here it will converge to this point. Still it is stable. Then you can find it converges after enough number of decaying oscillation. So once the system moves from this scenario to this scenario, that is called loss of monotonicity property. So here this equilibrium point is stable for two negative eigenvalue. Here and here equilibrium point is stable, but for two eigenvalues which are complex conjugate having negative real parts. Now, if you push this particular line little bit further on the left hand side, then you can see this equilibrium point is unstable and surrounded by a stable limit cycle, and size of the limit cycle will keep on increasing for further change in the parameter value as shown here. And then for this system, if you consider this parameter setup, then with the change of beta, you can determine threshold step by step. So you can verify that what are the bifurcation threshold, and then you have this kind of bifurcation structure for transcritical bifurcation. This was stable, then becomes unstable, and a new branch emerges. Why another branch on this part is not shown here? Because on this part, if you extend, then your equilibrium, another component will be negative, which is not ecologically feasible. So that's why I have not plotted it here. And geometrically, how you can visualize, initially your predator nullline was at this position and there was no point of intersection between these two curves, so there was no coexistence equilibrium point. At a particular threshold, this line passes through the point 1, 0. This is your transcritical bifurcation threshold, and then you can see they intersect at a point within the first quadrant, and therefore it becomes stable. So what happens in this case? This is stable. In this case, this is stable. So what will happen at this position? There is an exchange of stability between these two axial equilibrium point and coexistence equilibrium point. Once you plot it into the bifurcation diagram, you will get this structure. Now, if you keep on increasing further, so what will happen? That stable equilibrium point would lose its stability. So this is the stable limit cycle shown in magenta color, and then the size of the limit cycle further increases. And now from this limit cycle, if you collect the lower minimum value of x on this limit cycle and maximum value of x on this limit cycle and plot it against the parameter, then you will find this kind of bifurcation diagram. So this is the complete bifurcation diagram. So initially 1, 0 was stable, then through transcritical bifurcation it loses stability and coexistence equilibrium point becomes stable. Here is the Hopf bifurcation threshold where interior equilibrium point loses its stability, but there exists a stable limit cycle. So this is a very simple example. Now you might be wondering what kind of complicated thing can be done. I just show you a simple model that we have done extensively. So this is the model, and for this model, if you perform the analysis, so then from the nullline you can guess several ideas. So with the variation of one parameter, you can see the number of equilibrium point changes from 0 to 2, and once this curve touches the second curve, this indicates there is a possibility of saddle node bifurcation. There is another possibility if your curve starting from this point and it changes from this shape to this shape with respect to change in one parameter, then you can see that number of point of intersection changes from 1 to 1 through an intermediate situation 3. And what will happen? These two equilibrium point can coincide and disappear. These two equilibrium point can coincide and disappear, and depending upon that, several types of bifurcations are possible. And those kind of bifurcations are actually summarized in this picture. I am not going to explain you these things, because if I want to explain you these things, probably I need at least 5 lectures to deliver to give you the complete story. But if any one of you are working in this area, for them this is, you can say, some sort of motivating example or some idea that how it can be carried out. And this is bifurcation diagram for another scenario. And if you look at the dynamics very carefully, so all these different types of dynamics you can observe. So here different regions are marked as A, A1, B1, A2, B2, C2, and so on. So what is going on there? This is the description of the dynamics of the system at different regions. You can go through them. And these are the description of the different region. So I have considered only a simple model where this Holding type 2 functional response is concerned. As I told you earlier, there are several different types of model. So those can be constructed by considering these different type of functional responses. These are all, of course, prey-dependent functional response, but there are several predator-dependent functional response also which are available in literature. This is a list of some such kind of predator-dependent functional responses. And I just want to make one more comment, that is predator is also divided into 2 groups. In case of Rosenwig-McArthur model, or the model for which I have only shown you a trailer of the bifurcation diagram, in both the cases predator is specialist in nature. What is the meaning? That if n is 0, then this equation becomes dp/dt equal to minus mp, and it means predator will go to extinction. Ecologically, it means there is no other food source for predator apart from n. So that's why this case predator is called specialist predator. If you consider generalist predator, then your model will comes out to be this one. And what you can see, that if n is 0, you have some positive term here which will save the predator population from the extinction. So depending upon what type of predator species you are considering, you need to consider either this model or this model. So here is some references. These 2 are my favorite books for mathematical ecology, and I have mentioned only this paper for the reason that whatever bifurcation diagram I have shown you in last couple of slides, that complete analysis is available in this paper. If you are interested, you can go through it. And thank you very much